Swain Event fueled by Dead End Barbecue. It is time to bring on Austin Price of VolQuest.com. His time is brought to you by Jennifer Morris with Keller Williams Realty. Her telephone number is 865-257-7897. If you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, Jennifer Morris with Keller Williams Realty. AP, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Jason Swain. What have you warned or kind of I won't say warned. What have you predicted might happen on your show today, like you did yesterday with AJ Artis?
I predicted that Austin Price is going to join the show. Nothing special today. Nothing special, man. Just predicted that using him. Bless us with some quarterback information regarding this 2022 class, man. I'm not gonna let the people down, am I?
I mean, I don't know what we'll talk about, but I can talk about it. Yeah.
Well, I want to know, since Todd Simpson decided to go to Alabama and Sam Horn decided to, commit to Missouri, where does Tennessee go now, and what offers out there for 2022 quarterbacks are, from this staff, like who are the guys that Tennessee is really, really, really after to be possibly the future at quarterback? Well,
the next two names you'll hear talked about a lot are Tevin Jackson, quarterback from basically right around Indianapolis, kind of lives in the suburbs of Indianapolis, and then Drew Arla, and Drew is a big kid, 6'5", 220. Taven's big too. He's not as big as far as girth, but he's equally as tall. Another 6'5" kid. Jackson is an interesting, prospect. He's kind of burst onto the scene here lately, and so is Drew. But I think that for Tevin, he's not really been anywhere. And in talking to him the other night, it's pretty clear that while quarterbacks come off the board really early, I'm not sure he's in any rush to come off the board because he's not been anywhere. So, I think, the Florida offer and the Tennessee offer were intriguing to him. He's not been to either place. So, are you really going to commit to a place you've never seen? I mean, I know that's happened some, especially during the COVID time of recruiting, but knowing that, that at some point this thing's going to open back up, I think you're seeing more of a wait-and-see approach with recruits, and specifically with a guy like Tevin Jackson.
Austin, with Ty Simpson, just what do you think ultimately won out for Alabama? Was it as simple as Tennessee getting rid of Jeremy Pruitt, and do you think that door is completely closed moving forward?
I won't say it's completely closed because in recruiting you never say never. But, I think that, seeing Mac Jones do what he did, which is a guy that, waited his time, and, he went from a guy that nobody was even talking about a year and a half ago to, a Heisman finalist, a guy that, is going to get drafted in the NFL. I think all that kind of stood out to the Simpson family. I know winning championships and, being a contender for the Heisman Trophy and all that was very important to Ty. And in reality, you can, do certain things from just about any school, but, the constant championship talk that is Alabama for the last decade, and the fact that Alabama had basically three of the top five players in the country last year as far as Heisman voting, I think that just stood out to Ty.
And with Sam Horn, was it as simple as Tennessee not showing him enough love over the last several months and all the eggs being in on Ty Simpson?
That's exactly what it was. And, I've talked to, Sam's family. They've made sure to, point out that, Josh Heupel and this Tennessee staff did nothing wrong. They showed Tennessee 10 times more attention the last couple of weeks Well, they showed Sam 10 times more attention the last couple of weeks than Tennessee ever did under Jeremy Pruitt. Pruitt and company, they felt like they were going to get Ty, and they went all in on him, put every egg in the basket, and basically Sam moved on. I mean, Sam was going to commit to Tennessee late last summer, and then realized he wasn't a take, and that the former staff really wasn't high on him, and so he moved on, mentally moved on. And I know some fans are going to say, I don't understand. If you're a Tennessee fan, you grew up a Tennessee fan, you have a chance to come here, why would you go to Columbia, Missouri? Well, when you're 17, you don't think in those ways all the time.
Mm-mm.
And, he built a really strong relationship with Eli Drinkwitz. Eli did a really good job with Sam. And, it just got to a point where, Sam had been wanting to commit for a while and had decided, things kind of rubber met the road on Saturday night. Went to his dad and said, "Hey, I feel like I want to commit to Missouri." His dad told him, "Hey, let's think about it for a few days, sleep on it, and kind of reconvene back, Monday or Tuesday." That next morning, he came back and said, "I don't need to think about it anymore. This is where I want to go." And his parents, support their child. And so, will he listen if Tennessee continues to call? I think he would. I think that it's going to be a tough road to get him back. But at the same time, I do think it's still doable. I mean, I think you call both those kids, Sam and Ty, guys. The mistake with the last staff was, putting all the eggs in the basket. Like, bad recruiting is when you just you don't recruit others, and you just kind of go all in on one kid. Well, it would also be bad recruiting if you just move on and say, oh well, we lost out, because you don't really lose out until the kid signs. So, I expect Tennessee at some point or another to reach back out to both these kids. I'm not sure they're going to reach back out this week. I think they're going to give these kids some time to kind of let the dust settle, see where they are, and then they'll reach back out and go, "Would you like to still talk?" and see what happens.
Awesome. PriceVolquest.com here. So you mentioned two quarterbacks. You did not mention Caden Martin, who's going to make his announcement tomorrow. He plays quarterback there at Knox Catholic. He's also baseball. Is he making this decision tomorrow with baseball in mind or both in mind? What are you hearing there with Caden Martin?
Well, he's making the decision with baseball in mind. I know they love to play up the two sports star stuff, but Caden's going to play baseball. That's what he's great at. This kid, he can knock the cover off the ball. If you follow T on Instagram or anything like that, he puts videos up all the time of Caden, and Caden is, he smashes, man. That kid can hit. He plays the field. He play multiple positions. Really, really good. Caden's a good high school quarterback, but his future is in baseball, and Caden knows that, and that's where his future lies. Would he like to try to play both in college? Sure, he would, but at the same time, he knows that when it comes to making money, playing professionally, baseball's his ticket.
Yep, hey, unless you're Colin Murray, then I would focus on baseball, but that's just me. I'm
well, and that was part of the fear with Sam Horn, Jake. Sam Horn, it plays baseball and is really good and can end up being a high round draft pick. And if you remember, what year was Casey Kelly came through Swain? I forget the year that he came through. It's probably right after you graduated. But Tennessee got a commitment out of him, and then he ends up signing with the Red Sox, and just never materialized here to play football. But you always run a risk when you're recruiting a quarterback. It's also a pitcher. If they're good, you all of a sudden you lose your quarterback for that class, and I don't think Tennessee can afford to do that either.
Austin, the only other two names that I wanted to ask you about in regards to the quarterback position is Tevin Carter and Braden Davis, and that's simply because they have ties to Tennessee. So we have been asked about those two this morning. Tevin Carter from Memphis, Braden Davis, the son of Antone. Have you heard any buzz there?
Well, I think Braden Davis is down the list a little bit. Tevin Carter even further down the list. I just don't see them. I think that Tennessee would have to miss on several guys for that to be a real thing. For those kids. So as of right now, I think it's a long shot to see them here. And fans also. Tevin's got some stars behind his name. I'm not sure. Tevin is a take at a lot of places. At this point, he got injured a while back, and I think schools want to see him put more out on tape.
Fair. Austin, Tennessee finalized the staff yesterday with the hiring of Mike Ekeler. Looks like he has a lot of juice. Pretty high vertical jump from the photos I've seen. From what how did Tennessee, kind of land with Ekeler? How did they, come to taking a guy from North Texas, where a lot of fans may not think to go to that school to get an SEC coach, but he has ties. But how did ultimately Tennessee, land with him?
Well, he's been everywhere. He's a journeyman. He never stays anywhere long. So, just going off track record, if you're a Tennessee fan, don't get too attached to this guy. He probably won't be here more than a couple of years. You just look at his track record as a coach. He's been at Georgia, been at North Carolina, LSU, USC, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Kansas, been at North Texas a couple of different instances. But he's also a guy that, is a player's coach. He's an energy guy. You've seen some of his former players, whether it be at Georgia or Nebraska, come out and really, say Tennessee got a good one. So, I think his ability to coach special teams, his ability to help out on defense with outside backers, something that, that was something that Josh Heupel had been looking for. Heupel and company had talked to the special teams guy at Virginia, but settled back on Ekeler, who Heupel knew from their time at Oklahoma as graduate assistants back in 2004.
Austin, what do you think of Curt Schmidt, who will be taking over for A.J. Artis? What have you heard about him?
Well, he's already kind of taken over for A.J.
Right.
That was just kind of a marriage that was never going to last. Every coach that comes in here, even Philip Fulmer, who was promoted from within, hired his own strength and conditioning coach. So, I think that's pretty natural because the strength and conditioning coach spends so much time with the players that, you're going to have a guy that, is your guy. And, and for AJ, even though he had a chance to stick around and the players really liked him, do you really want to be that guy that's a holdover? And all of a sudden you're also splitting duties with a guy that the new coach brought in, and Curt Schmidt. So, Curt Schmidt brings the continuity as far as, having worked with Heupel for the last several years. And obviously I know the players were disappointed that AJ is no longer here, but I think when you look at it from a business standpoint, I think AJ made the right decision for him, based off of just kind of what normally happens. And then Coach Heupel, made the decision that was best for, his strength program, again, based off what normally happens.
Yep, it's kind of part of it, man. I rattled off 10 to 11 different strength coaches since 2008. Well,
that's the thing, Jason. It's not when you change head coaches, you always change your strength coach. That's almost like as sure as snow in Canada. But I don't even know where that analogy came from. But it's Tennessee changing strength coaches when they've had the same coach for several years. Like Butch had 3 in his last 3 years. Dooley had multiple. You just
Kiffin had 2.
Can't have that. You've got to have confidence. Like, the best thing that can happen for Tennessee football is not to change. That was going to happen. Like when they brought in Schmidt. The best thing that can happen though is however long Josh Heupel is here, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years that Curt Schmidt is here during the Heupel tenure, and there's a constant voice, and Heupel's not having to constantly change out strength coaches. I mean, you go back, Jeremy had 2, Butch had 3, Dooley had, I think, 2 or 3, and then of course Lane had his one that was a different
2.
one the year he was here.
He had 2. Remember, he had he fired one and then brought in.
That's right.
Yeah, he had 2. Yeah.
In a year. So I mean, like that. You see my point is like you can't. It's okay to change strength coaches when you change head coaches, but you really need to try to avoid a revolving door at that position. And I think Curt Schmidt's pretty loyal to Josh Heupel.
AP, you see, Harrison Bailey tweeting at Eric Gilbert. His high school teammate, had a great season there with LSU, hit the transfer portal, committed to Florida, decommitted to Florida. What can you say there about Eric Gilbert and his connection to Harrison Bailey?
Well, those two guys know each other quite well, and if you're Tennessee, you want Harrison to try to work his magic. The previous staff wanted Harrison to try to work that magic back when he first went in the portal coming out of LSU. So, we'll see. I'm not going to totally close the door on that, but, I do think that, this thing will have 27 different turns, and ultimately you kind of want Eric Gilbert to kind of get some stuff right in his life because he's clearly kind of all over the map. Bouncing around after his freshman year and, doing all the, that's kind of twists and turns so far this offseason. So, I hope for that kid that he kind of figures some stuff out and he becomes at peace with his decision and we'll see. I think ultimately, this thing's got more twists and turns in it before he decides.
Austin, now that Heupel has concluded putting his staff together, how would you summarize, put a bow on the job that he has done putting the staff together?
I think he's done a nice job. There's experience. There's SE experience. There's continuity on the offensive side of the ball. I look at it, the offensive side has the continuity. The experience of the staff is on the defensive side, where you look at Tim Banks, who's, been a coach at big-time programs for several years. Rodney Garner's done it for over 30 years. Brian Jean Mary is an established guy and has done it, at Texas and Louisville and South Florida and Michigan and done a really nice job. Ekeler has got experience at several key places. And then Willie Martinez is another guy that has, been a coordinator in the SEC and coached big-time Power 5 football for a long time. So kind of got a mixture, to answer your question. But I think that, each side, we'll figure out the questions remain. Can the, maybe more unproven offensive side, prove their, credentials at the SEC level? And then how does the defensive side, which is proven their credentials individually, how do they mesh and coexist together? And how does Tim Banks do it, calling the defense for Josh Heupel?
Yep. A lot of questions, man, and we'll find out here soon, man. Spring practice will start, and before you know it, the season will be around the corner. So a lot of change, and certainly there's not a lot of anticipation on a great season because still waiting on NCAA stuff to come down. So it's wait and see mode, but the players are working hard. It looks like they're building some chemistry and some leadership inside of the program. So that's good to see, man. Good to see. Austin, tell us what's going on at Volquest. What's coming down the pike as we let you go?
Well, we'll have continued coverage. We've got recruiting coverage. We'll have, we'll try to continue to get hold of more and more quarterbacks that Tennessee is going in on. I can hear from Tevin Jackson at Volquest, trying to get a hold of Drew Arla, and then, also continuing our coverage from the 7-on-7 camp in Gatlinburg. As I talked to a couple of 2023s that I think were really impressive. up there at Gallenberg in the 7-on-7. And, we'll just continue to get you ready to close out the Tennessee basketball season, which looks like it will close out sooner rather than later with the way that group is currently playing.
Yeah, you right about that. Austin. Hey, man, thanks for your time, my friend.
Thank you, guys.
See you.